It's great to have the opportunity to give a market overview lecture on glaucoma and then introduce three CEOs of companies that are really doing remarkable work in the area. Quigley has estimated that about 70 to 80 million individuals worldwide have glaucoma, and then if you add in the 40 million plus ocular hypertensives, the number of patients eligible for glaucoma care is about 125 million worldwide, with about a quarter of that made up of individuals in the US, Japan, and Western Europe, about a quarter in China, about a quarter in India and Latin America, and then a quarter in the rest of the world. And this is growing at a pretty remarkable rate with the aging population. Open-angle glaucoma and ocular hypertension make up the two categories that comprise the greatest number of individuals eligible for treatment, but angle closure and secondary glaucomas also make up a solid quarter of these individuals. This is a slide I borrowed from Cindy Maddox, President-elect of the American Glaucoma Society. This is a pyramid of the US population. And as you can see, it's projected that in the year 2050, the numbers of individuals under the age of 65 will be about the same as we have now, but there's going to be an approximate doubling of the number of individuals over the age of 65. And age is a very important risk factor for glaucoma. We have exponential increase in glaucoma prevalence with each decade of life. And what that's going to mean is that our glaucoma patients are going to be older. If you look at 2014, if you look at the approximate numbers of patients with glaucoma in the 40 to 60 age group versus the 60s, 70s, and 80s, it's pretty even. But if you look at what's projected in 2050 with the aging population, both in the US and worldwide, really both in developing and developed countries, you're going to see that most of the patients with glaucoma will be over the age of 70. And as we do cataract surgery earlier, and glaucoma patients live longer, the pseudophakic life of a glaucoma patient will be longer. And so Carrie made the point, and I think some others made the point about pseudophakia being a big opportunity, and really new products should address the pseudophakic patient. If you look at the big picture of glaucoma care, about 25 to 50% of those residing in industrialized countries with glaucoma know that they have the disease. And this number is much less in developing countries. Those who are aware are often not under care, and we know that compliance is a big problem in all chronic diseases, and particularly in glaucoma, which is relatively asymptomatic in the early course of the disease. The disease has a very unpredictable natural history. We don't have good biomarkers to predict who's going to get worse and who's going to stay about the same. But fortunately, only a small percentage go blind, and that's why, for some reason, which is probably the primary reason we haven't had an aggressive surgical approach for glaucoma early, because many of these patients will do well even if they're never diagnosed. But we can make things better by lowering intraocular pressure. We reduce the risk of vision loss from the disease, but we do not fully eliminate it. And Rick Lewis made the point that many of these patients don't have high intraocular pressure and yet continue to do worse. Who takes care of glaucoma? And this point was made in the previous panel. When the US, about 60% of ophthalmologists self-identify themselves as comprehensive, and a subset of those actually have specialty training but choose to really practice comprehensive ophthalmology. Within the approximate 40% that are specialists, only 12% are glaucoma doctors. So less than 5% of US ophthalmologists are glaucoma doctors. The overwhelming majority of glaucoma care is delivered by general ophthalmologists. And so it's important for companies that are developing glaucoma products to realize that glaucoma doctors and general ophthalmologists see different types of glaucoma patients, and that general ophthalmologists do make up the greater number of doctors caring for glaucoma, and in fact take care of a bigger portion of the glaucoma market. If we look at drugs in the glaucoma market, we have the prostaglandins making up a solid 1/3. The branded and generics make up about 35% of prostaglandins. This is data from MarketScope. Another third is made up of the aqueous suppressants, the beta blockers, carbonic anhydrase inhibitors, and alpha agonists. And then we have fixed combination products. In the US, we have fixed combinations of 2 aqueous suppressants. Outside the US, we have prostaglandin aqueous suppressant fixed combinations. It's a $4.7 billion global market this year. It would be a lot larger if patients took their medications. Compliance is a huge problem, and unlike the stereotypes that have been propagated over the years that patients who are uneducated or have to take multiple drops or non-compliant, Sean Lin, my colleague at UCSF, and I looked at the San Francisco population and found that the only predictor of compliance is really disease severity. People with more severe disease are more likely to take their glaucoma meds. If they're asymptomatic, they're less likely to take their meds. As the disease progresses and they have vision loss, then it improves compliance. None of the other risk factors or putative risk factors such as age, race, gender, and even number of medicines really were significantly related to compliance. On the surgical side, we've had three major trends over the past 2 decades. Initially, laser trabeculoplasty dropped tremendously after the introduction of latanoprost in the 1990s, but there was a rebound with the introduction of selective laser trabeculoplasty in the early 2000s with a peak 180,000 Medicare claims in the mid-2000s, and then there's been a slow decline after that as well. We've seen a significant drop in trabeculectomy and an increase in tube implantation over the past 2 decades as well, but the tubes still make up a very small proportion of overall glaucoma surgical procedures. In the last couple of years, we've seen the introduction of MIGS, which are being rapidly adopted. It's estimated that approximately 15 to 20% of individuals undergoing cataract surgery have concomitant glaucoma. And so there's an incredible opportunity to reduce the dependence on glaucoma medicines at the time of cataract surgery. These are forecast numbers also provided by MarketScope. MIGS are here to stay, and I do think that with the entrance of newer categories, newer devices, this space will enlarge even more. I think safety has already been shown, and efficacy is getting better and better, and it's nice to see new entrants. The other thing I want to point out is that the American Glaucoma Society has partnered with the FDA, and under Malvina Edelman's leadership, we've done a joint workshop. We published a paper describing the workshop that's in Press in Ophthalmology, and the FDA has issued draft guidance, a leapfrog document to help companies that are in the MIG space to make the pathway to completing the studies and approval hopefully shorter. And so I have to applaud the FDA for their partnership with the glaucoma community in moving this field forward.